Welcome to Screw the Commute, the entrepreneurial podcast dedicated to getting you out of the car and into the money. With your host, lifelong entrepreneur and multimillionaire, Tom Antion.
Hey everybody, it's Tom here with episode 66 of Screw the Commute podcast. We got a great guest today. His name is Ken Keis. You're going to be amazed at his story, and he's really an authority on behavioral assessment and strategies and a lot of great stuff. So stay tuned for that. Now, I hope you didn't miss episode 65 with Joel Block. Now, this guy covers stuff that I am clueless about. He was a hedge fund manager, which is a fancy word for a professional investor, and he had some really great insights on thinking and the stuff to do with your money as a entrepreneur. So you don't want to miss that. Check that out later. Go back and listen to episode 65. And one quick announcement, our podcast app should be live when you listen to this. So you can download that from the iTunes, from the App Store, and you'll be able to do lots of cool stuff with our podcast conveniently right from your mobile device. So check that out, Screw the Commute app in the App Store. Now, our sponsor for today is the Screw the Commute private Facebook group, where you can interact with me, my staff, and with other great entrepreneurs and like-minded people. And it's a place where my staff and I put in training and business tips several times per week. You can ask questions and get feedback on things that you are doing. I'll tell you more about that later, but you can find that at screwthecommute.com/Facebook, screwthecommute.com/Facebook. All right, let's get to the main event. Ken Keis is a PhD. He's a foremost global authority on behavioral assessment strategies and processes. He's an expert in leadership, purpose, and wellness. He's authored over 4 million words of content. And now, I don't wonder who counted them. That's what I'm thinking. I bet you that's probably 4,102,000 now, but we'll have to check that. So that includes 500 articles, 4 books, and a dozen assessments. Now, did you know that less than 10% of the population believe they're living out their purpose? And only 13% of the global workforce say they are engaged. For Dr. Keis, this is not acceptable. Ken's purpose is to help others to live, lead, and work on purpose. Ken, are you ready to screw?
Of course.
The commute.
I did. I was not ready. I'm done. I've already done
Oh, you've done for today? All right, good.
You know, I've done it.
You can think clearly then today.
Well, my commute resulted in 22 steps from my bedroom to the home office, which I'm in.
Yeah, that is excellent. I think mine's about the same, and I don't know how many seconds, maybe 28 seconds, but that's the way to live at it. But tell everybody what you've been doing lately.
Well, I actually started out as a dairy farmer, and 30 years ago, I transitioned into the professional development space, firstly as a sales trainer. I used to be a sales professional. I was number one in our team.
Wait a minute. You were a dairy farmer. Is that what you just said?
I said, hey, listen, you think about business and the entrepreneurs that are listening, that's very entrepreneurial, but I was the firstborn male, third generation, Eastern European descent on our family dairy farm. And so that's what Dad wanted me to do. But
how many cows did you have?
Well, at that time, we were milking around 100, and now I think the family farm's about 160, which is small for our area now because everything's, double, tripled, quadrupled.
But by hand, or did you have those machines?
Oh, no, we're machines. I'm not as old as you, Tom. I'm younger. I'm younger than that.
Well, I heard a comedian talking about, just think about the first person, how weird they must have been to ever drink milk. Where did they get it? What were they doing at the time when they thought they could drink some milk? So glad we've evolved from that over time. So, okay, so you were a dairy farmer, and then what happened?
Well, I actually couldn't work with my dad, so I left and worked for the Federal Department of Agriculture, and then I worked as a sales position.
You mean you couldn't get along with your dad?
That's pretty well it, because both of us wanted to be in charge. Does that sound
Well,
familiar as an entrepreneur?
well, family businesses have some of the biggest trouble because people, the personalities get involved rather than this is the job, this is the boss, this is the not the boss, and there's a hierarchy. But when families, that can get very mixed up very quickly.
Well, sure. In the research around family business, and those of you that are listening, entrepreneurs, Dr. Stanley's work is less than 10% of businesses make it to the third generation. Mm-hmm. And you know what? I actually started my own farm finally. And then I just got up one morning. It was about 5:30 in the morning. The sun was coming up. And I said, listen, is it okay for me to keep doing this 20 years from now? And I said, absolutely not. So then I knew sort of my answer. I re-engineered or reverse engineered my answer about what is it that I needed to do. So I wasn't exactly sure what the transition was going to be, but I knew that doing this, whatever that was in the dairy farm, wasn't going to be my permanent place.
Well, listen, you should have done an assessment on your dad and then sat him down and gone over the results.
Well, that was my pre-master's degree, PhD, any of that kind of stuff. Well, interesting, for those of you that are listening, my grade 9 teacher said I would never amount to anything because I couldn't read or write. I have minor dyslexia. And so, I mean, you and I grew up at a time in school where before computers.
Absolutely,
so when computers were invented and all of a sudden there's a red line under almost every word that I'm typing, I said, well, why is that? Well, that's because they're misspelled, Mr. Keis, Dr. Keis. So that's how I was able to develop my writing skills is through the computer. And all of a sudden, I mean, typing and doing all this work. I never would have thought way back when I was 16, that I would be an author. I mean, who knew?
Wow, good for you. So what kind of folks do you work with now in this assessment business? I've heard of DISC and Myers-Briggs and stuff like. Is that what we're talking about?
Well, that's one of our tools. We have a holistic model, Tom. So when we think about developing the whole person, our tool, the personal style indicator or the sales style indicator, or we have the entrepreneurial style and success indicator for all your listeners, is we built ours because we weren't happy with the other tools out there back then. Our company's been around now for 40 years, 1979, founded by Dr. Terry Anderson. And then I bought the company in 2002. So I've been around this now for 15, 16 years, but I actually got connected to the company in 1990. So where we're at the time of the recording of this, 28, moving on to, I've been in this industry now for 30 years. So yes, we help people through a series of tools. So we have a wellness assessment, self-worth, leadership skills, learning styles, personality. And, our people prefer ours because we really wanted to create something for the learner. So when you take it, Tom, you get clear about, what are my strengths? What are my challenges? How do I work with others? What does it mean with all my relationships? And all the research is clear. Talent Smart did this, which is subsidiary of Kenneth Blanchard, that only 2% of the population could realize their purpose or their potential without this knowledge. So what? And over 70% of the population, or the odds are for people even listening to this podcast, don't know what their personal style or personality is. And it's critical because it influences every single decision, all my engagement levels, what I prefer to do, what I prefer not to do, all these things. And so I can be intentional by knowing this.
Well, let's go to you. I heard you mention you had an entrepreneurial one, and
yes.
Is it possible that it might come out and you're sitting there looking at the person and say, you should never in a million years try to start a business, you suck? Is it possible?
No, that's not what it does.
Is
it has
nature
two parts.
versus nurture, or what is it?
Well, we actually, in this assessment, which has two parts to it, it talks about both. We actually believe in nature and we also believe in nurture. And that's the reality of it. So we have preferences. Now, nowadays, right now, and we were talking about it when you were on my podcast, and thanks again for being on Secrets of Success.
Secrets of Success. Yeah, that was great.
With Dr. Keis. So that was great, and I appreciated that. Is that now there's more opportunities to create businesses than ever before, the virtual ones. Here we are on a virtual podcast, recording, via different systems that were never available before. So our entrepreneurial assessment helps you understand your business strengths, what some business challenges you would have, what kind of leader you might be, but it also compares you to the mindset of 4,000 successful entrepreneurs.
I see.
And so how do you think? And now if you don't think like or don't have the background of the most successful entrepreneurs, that's fine, but now you have a development track. So it doesn't necessarily say that you should or shouldn't Because the other side is, Tom, how many different businesses are there? So if I would never survive as an entrepreneur, as a corner store owner. I mean, 24/7, they're constantly that's not it for me. This virtual kind of business, our expertise is really to help other people in their personal, professional development in a holistic manner. So I'm also a wellness coach. I have a diploma in nutrition and genetics. And so we just help people to say, hey, if I know my purpose, but I'm constantly ill or not well or don't have energy, well, what good is that? Or if I know my right business, but I can't lead others, then what's that? So then that's why we have a leadership skills. So that's where all the content comes from. And we have 9 different authors that have contributed to this journey at this company over the last 40 years to be able to serve the listeners on Screw the Commute.
Okay, so how does somebody take one of these tests? I mean, is this something that only for big business where it's a fortune, or can individuals assess themselves?
Oh, absolutely. The way our tools are all learner friendly. You can go to our crgleader.com site.
crgleader.com, right?
.com, and all the assessments are there. You can purchase them. They're all the way from, just $35, $40 to $50 for an assessment.
And somebody can evaluate the results themselves?
Absolutely. And then I have some video clips. And then we also have some online courses if you want to take a course, which is a little bit more money, to be able to learn about the dynamics. So like an example is I just did a conference. I was speaking at a conference doing our values assessment. So in 75 minutes, I was able to get people to get clear about what do they value, what are their needs, what are their fears, and able to do that in less than 75 minutes. I mean, this doesn't have to be a burden, Tom. That's the problem. A lot of these, I'll call it psychometric tests where I do to you. They're really only for the test giver. They're not for the test taker. And so our tools we do with you, not to you. And so it's really learning. I have 15-year-olds in grade 10 that take the tools to help get clear about, their direction in life and what's important to them. And they can be intentional. And in those individuals who are just young entrepreneurs and growing up and making choices. I mean, life's confusing right now, right? So there's so many opportunities. Even if you think from a job point of view, there's 40,000 job titles out there in the U.S. Well, that could get pretty confusing. So my job as an individual, the job you as the listener, is to go on this journey of clarity. And, what do I really like? What do I dislike? What are my values? What's my personality? What are my leadership skills? What are the things that are important to me? And by doing that, then you define the kind of business that you want to own, want to operate, want to be in. Where are those passions? Because we know, Tom, I just completed 30 years in here. I just did this seminar. I've never been more, I'll guess, say excited or passionate. People then said, Ken, where'd you get all this passion? I said, well, I don't know. That is intuitively or internally in me, but I still love it 30 years later. In fact, probably even more.
Wow. These assessments. Well, I heard you say about 40,000 different job titles out there. And I heard somebody say one time, don't worry if your kid doesn't know what they want to be when they grow up. It probably hasn't been invented yet. So,
well, you're quoting me then.
Oh, is that you?
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah. So if somebody's out there in a cubicle or even like you said, the younger person that hasn't been in the workforce yet, they go to your site and what's the name of this assessment they should a business assessment or entrepreneurial assessment?
Well, it's called the entrepreneurial style.
Style
and success indicator.
And success indicator. And they pay the money, they get it. Now, how do they take it? Do they take it online or they download it and check off boxes or what?
Take it online. It's all mobile friendly.
Nice.
So if you're taking it on your phone, you can complete it on your phone or on your notebook or your desktop, whatever, your iPad. So all our responsive design, we keep it there. So you purchase it, it's immediately available. You can take it instantly. Now there's all these cute ones that are online and Facebook, and I want to do it. Well, those are not real assessments. They're just little fun quizzes. So if you want something that's deeper, of more value, then you complete it. And then I have a short video at the end of each assessment once you've completed it. It doesn't take you very long.
Yeah, how long does it take to take it?
Depending on what assessment, it could be as short as 10 minutes. It could be as long as 20 minutes, depending on which tool that you're taking. So 10 to 20 minutes. And it's interesting. It's funny, Tom, where when my kids were going to university and they just finished recently, they said, well, we're not going to spend $45 or $30 on ourselves. Then it said, it's too expensive. And I said, okay. And then it wasn't 5 minutes later, they were going to a movie and then having beer with their buddies, right?
Right.
So they're spending over $45 just on entertainment. So what a person spends their money on is also saying what's most important to them.
Right.
Are you worthy of a few dollars of an investment? I mean, and if you're not, then you're not taking your life seriously. And no wonder there are so many people that are confused. You started the show with saying, 90% of people really are not connected to their purpose. There's more confusion. There's more options than ever before. But it also means that I need to be more intentional. I need to get involved with some of these kinds of assessments and tools and resources. I mean, assessments aren't the end all or be all. They are one part of developing clarity, figuring out what you want to do, and all the work that you do as far as marketing and helping people to, sort of embrace this entrepreneurial spirit. Tom, thank you for all that work that you do here on this podcast, plus all the other stuff that you've done for the decades that you've been in this business. So that's the work. My job as an individual, those of you that are listening, is to get clear about what your job or what your opportunity is or what the business you want to get into.
Okay, so let me put you on the spot here a little bit and have you make up a hypothetical on the spot of, let's say somebody sits down and takes this entrepreneurial, would you call it again, style?
Entrepreneurial style success indicator.
Success indicator. And so give us some examples of something that might come out on the success indicator, and then what that person, how it helps them make a decision to do what.
Well, part of it is it's going to understand what are the strengths they're going to bring to a business. So I know that we want to develop some skills, and not all of us can do everything. Bookkeeping, I just absolutely detest it. I hate it.
Yeah, me too.
And I was doing it when I first started. It's not the best use of my gifts, talents, and abilities.
Would that show up on the assessment?
It would show up as not necessarily the accounting, but just maybe my attention to details. Maybe I'm not that oriented. Maybe I'm more better at strategy. Or some of you might be very, very good at structure. But part of your development is developing assertiveness and being out there and being more open to promoting. Sometimes what happens is that we get into partnerships. Not all entrepreneurships or entrepreneurial ventures are a single person. So what it will do is say, well, if I'm going to hire or if I'm going to have a contractor serve me, we tend to want to hang out, Tom, with people who are like us. But you might want to hire or have a contractor who is opposite of you, which actually irritates you because it fills in the gaps. They think differently than you, and that's what you want. And
God, I must be perfect, Ken. Everybody irritates me.
Oh, you're just an entrepreneur there. Yeah, of course. So we're helping people to bring language to understand self, to understand work, to understand relationships. The other one, even from a customer point of view, our number one rated program we ever created was called Why Don't You Sell the Way That I Buy, which uses our sales style tool, which is a sister tool to the entrepreneurial one. And we did it for Chrysler, and we did it in 40 countries and different languages. And when as a customer or as an entrepreneur, most of the times we will have a customer at some point or not. And so now I'm understanding different customer styles. How do I sell to them? How do I market to them? How do I build relationships with people that are different than me? That's what this process is about. And you know what? We never stop learning about it. I've taught this now for nearly 30 years, and I'm still learning about how I can use this. The other one is about being in charge of self. One of the things we do is, I've done, multiple podcasts as you have done. But one of the things we teach is this self-awareness is so important. If I'm not sure who I am and I don't know who you are, then how can we have this intentional interaction?
Right.
So not only am I aware who I am, but then number two is self-mastery. Sometimes in business, we have to do things we don't like, right?
You're kidding.
So yeah. So even though I don't like details, even though I maybe don't want to be focused on that, that doesn't mean that I don't have to develop the discipline or the structure or the processes around me, Tom, so that I can be successful in my business. And so part of this is to say, okay, Ken, suck it up, princess. This is what you need to do here. And so I help to sort of adjust and then set up strategies that work for me. So an example is, let's say I don't like a lot of detail, but maybe I could do an hour a day of it. Well, then that's how I do it rather than beat myself up and feel guilty of all the things that I haven't done. I said, no, I can do an hour a day. That's what my business needs. Maybe I could hire this person over here or get a contractor to do the bookkeeping and input it into QuickBooks or Simply Accounting or whatever am I using. And then I can still look at the numbers. I can still be aware of it. So now I'm starting to be intentional with this. If I want to have a partner, if I want to bring a team together, whatever it is, we give structure and processes and systems to be able to do that successfully.
Now, are these, when somebody takes an assessment, is it confidential?
Absolutely. So now the other one is you can even send assessments out to your partners or team members, and you can choose. We spent multiple seven figures setting up our online learning system, Tom. It took us actually 5 years and 1 million lines of code for the current version to set it up. So I can send it to you, Tom, and I can decide after I purchase this as the person sending it out, does Tom see it? Do I see it? Or do we both see it?
The results, you mean? So I could send it to an employee, but they don't see the results. I see them.
Correct.
Okay.
And but that's set up in advance. Or if I'm taking it, it's only if your entrepreneurs want to go online, take it right now, then yes, you're the only one that's going to see it.
Right. Okay. So anything funny or bizarre happened in your business life?
Well, I'm not sure about bizarre as much. I was trying to think about that because you actually sent that question to me in advance. And I think it was more bizarre where we actually started our business I bought a second house down the street, and I have a little print shop as well, which I'm winding down a little bit now, because back then when I bought the company, I didn't have any of these tools online.
Right.
Think about that.
Right.
That's just 16 years ago. So we actually had the neighbors phone us in, and I was evicted from my own office because the city bylaws didn't allow 3 employees in a residential location. So then I rented another offsite place, and then I recently bought an office building where I do have some staff there. So, we have 6 or 8 people that kind of hang out in our business there, all the different things that are going on as part of that process. But I tend to work from home most of the time.
Right, but that's a good point because, I've worked out of my home my entire life. In fact, when I had my nightclub for 6 years, I lived above the nightclub. So I've always lived out of my worked out of my home. But you have to watch that some places if they're more strict than others, and if you have traffic and some neighbors mad at you, they could
Oh, it was so ridiculous. It was not needed, Tom. We were great neighbors. I did improvements in the house. I improved the value of everything. We weren't bothering people at night or anything like that. We have no idea, based on the city bylaws here, they don't have to tell you who complained.
Right, exactly.
So now I had 3 staff members. Guess what's allowed in a residential area?
What?
2.
2.
So what I really needed to do is to fire one person.
Or remove them, let them work remotely now. You could do, as long as they're trustworthy.
Exactly. I mean, we have now moved our business to cloud-based for our files just recently, and same thing with CRMs. If you remember, customer relation management,
right, sure.
like Goldmine or some of these other ones, they were on your computer. Now you have Infusionsoft, Salesforce.
Yeah.
Act, of course.
Yeah.
Boy, you're dating yourself on that one too, aren't you, Tom?
Years and years and years I used that bad boy. So what do you like best about working for yourself, and what's the worst part about working for yourself?
It's the same. It's the 2 sides of the same coin. Myself. Working for myself and the independence that I have, I just love that. It's important. I really couldn't work for anybody else right now, Tom, at this point in my life. It's just not where I'm at.
Oh, nobody would have you. What are you talking about?
Well,
same with me.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the 2 of us would start a new club for that.
Right.
And nobody wanted by other people. The other side, for those of us that are entrepreneurs, guess what? We're accountable for self. So every day you get up, you have to set up your own structure, your processes, systems, so that you can be successful. Because the other side is you can just not be as disciplined as you want, or So one of the things that happened for me when I first got involved in this business, I was not near as disciplined on a daily basis because I started from my apartment as I am now. I love working from home now. I've just grown, matured. I've now moved into this writing. I used to really be a speaker who writes. Now I'm a writer who speaks. And so that's been the shift in I never thought that would happen, but way back when in the 90s, we had a contract with Chrysler and I was on the road 300 days a year. So it was my own business, but I was in an airplane every day of the week and flying. So I remember one year I had 150 flights.
Oh my God.
So in a 7-year period of time, I was away 1,500 days. Almost cost me my marriage. So when we think about business, I mean, it's been very good to me, and it's put me in a position where I'm one of the top, experts of assessments in the world now. But because of that experience, but I would never do it again. I would never change it.
You should have done an assessment. I can just see assessment of your wife. I'd like to have a husband that I can remember his name.
Exactly. Well, a lot of cell phones. And she says, well, for all intents and purposes, we had our kids were younger then. She said I was a single mom. I would come back Friday night and I'd leave on Sunday. And I did that for 7 years. So, I get that. I mean, the business was good to us. But now I'm mostly home.
Good.
So I'll travel and speak at conferences a couple times a month now. But now it's what I want to do, not what I have to do per se. So when you look at working for yourself, is knowing yourself, what works for you, what structure works for you. When I'm doing writing, I always write from home. I never write from the office anymore. I will go in the office and work with the team because I know that when I'm at home, that's where I do my best writing. And so start paying attention to the clues. Life is constantly leaving us clues of environments, structures, processes, relationships that will work for us. But are we paying attention to be able to make sure that we set up our life or set up our business to really not to serve us from a self-centered point of view, but from a self-honoring point of view? And that's where the assessments come in. When we think about our values assessment, we measure motivational values. So an example is, let's say you need tranquility as one of your values, but you are in a credit collection department in a business. Well, that's in conflict. You're gonna hate your job every single day.
Right.
And it's not that you should feel guilty about it, or you're not committed enough, or you're not trying enough. It's just that the nature of the work and the nature of you are not a match. And so why would you do that to yourself every day?
Yeah,
and
somebody that loved to fight it out, that would be perfect for them.
Yeah. So you and I could take those jobs maybe as part of it. So my encouragement to everybody listening here, yes, there's lots of things in our business that we have to do that we maybe don't prefer. But can the majority of what we're doing really play to our passions, play to our purpose, play to our preferences, all these things? And am I moving towards a position, an opportunity, a business that includes as much as possible on those criteria?
Absolutely. All right, we've got to take a quick break for our sponsor. And when we come back, we're going to ask Ken what's a typical day look like for him and how he stays motivated. And he has a freebie for those of you that stick in till the end here. So stick around for that. All right, Screw the Commute private Facebook group is where you can interact with me, my staff, and with other great entrepreneurs and like-minded people. And it's a place where my staff and I put in training and business tips several times per week. You can ask questions and get feedback on things that you are doing. And I give you quick tips that have made and saved me tons of money over more than 40 years in business. And myself and my staff also give more in-depth postings on all kinds of business topics. So check it out in the show notes at screwthecommute.com/Facebook. Screwthecommute.com/Facebook. All right, let's get back to today's great guest. It's Ken Keis. He's also the host of the great podcast Secrets of Success, and he's the foremost expert in the world on behavioral assessment. So, Ken, what's a typical day look like for you? What time do you get up? What do you exercise? What's life like with the kids and the family and all that?
Well, we are now empty nesters.
Oh,
so
okay.
How about that? So,
right.
And my wife works in university as an academic coach, so we get to go and have our own space per se. I get up around 7-ish, plus or minus, depends again on my own boss. So if it wants to be 7:15 or 7:30, or if it wants to be 6:45, so be it. For me, I work out in the afternoons. I have a home gym. And so I found that my biorhythms, I really don't like to go to the gym first thing in the morning. Now, I did do that for several years, but it just really wasn't me. So my workout time is 4 o'clock or somewhere about then. And then when Brenda comes home and we have dinner, so that kind of works. In the morning, my first hour is mostly really going through my newsletters. I read health newsletters, I read leadership newsletters, I read spiritual newsletters or a podcast. So I spend about an hour every morning sort of working on myself. And that's the space that I do. I subscribe to certain things that I want to educate myself. And everybody talks about, continuous learning, the 5-hour rule. Make sure that you have at least 5 hours of learning in your week somewhere, somehow. And then in the evenings, I also listen to podcasts on top of that, after dinner. Excuse me. And so, I love this podcast space because I can take my phone wherever I'm going, if I'm working out, if I'm driving. I do not listen to the news. I absolutely abhor that. It's just,
Right.
It's just a drain. I do have a news app on my phone, and I can look and review the news in about 38 seconds. So if I see the headlines, if there's something I'm going to look at and look at the story, that's fine. Otherwise, I don't bother. We actually canceled TV in our house 30 years ago.
Wow.
So when the kids, well, actually 25. So when the kids were younger, we just said, that's it. We're not going to have it. We canceled it. So we haven't had cable or TV in the house for a couple of decades.
Good for you. All right. So how do you stay motivated?
Well, some days I'm not, quite frankly, Tom.
No, that's impossible.
I know it's impossible. But one of the things is, and this is my encouragement to individuals out there, is, 75% of businesses or more fail entrepreneurial ventures. And there's various different reasons, but you have to make sure that what you're doing is connected to your passion and your purpose. There's some people that disagree with that, but I said, I don't get it, where people say, well, passion's not important. I said, bunk. The reality is how I stay motivated is I love what I do. I really, really do. And, doing things like this podcast, this isn't work. Are you kidding me? This is just me. It's just what I'm doing. Or, hosting a podcast and Tom, having you on the show and being able to have questions for experts and individuals who have
we
insight.
had a lot of laughs too. I don't know, that was not going to be up till January or something, right? But definitely listen, he's got a lot of great guests on there. I listened to several episodes before I was on on his show. It's The Secrets of Success with Dr. Ken Keis, and Keis is spelled Keis. Keis.
That's correct.
So make sure you subscribe to his podcast at iTunes or anywhere that they have great quality podcasts.
And so Tom, part of that staying motivated is why we're doing it. When I was speaking at the conference and having 100 people in the room and everybody's just having fun, it's not work. It's not work. So, pay attention to it. One of the things we teach in this comes to the free guest or the free gift that we're talking about, right?
Right.
Is my latest book, The Quest for Purpose. I talk about it in there where not only are assessments, but I get people to journal. I give them a series of questions and activities to do to get clear about, what is my purpose? What do I want to do in all areas of my life? But one of the things I teach in that is that procrastination long-term is actually a good sign. And here's what I mean by that. If I'm constantly delaying engagement, then am I doing the wrong thing, or am I doing the right thing in the wrong environment, or both? And so that's part of it where I said, why do I have to kind of keep forcing myself to do this? Inspiration, motivation is a myth. So if I have to constantly force myself to do it every single day, then am I really, really, really in the right space? Am I doing that? And so that's why I don't have to, quote unquote, stay motivated, because I'm actually doing what I enjoy and what I love. This is not work. Are you kidding me? Hanging out with Tom on his podcast, it's like, anyways, I can't even explain it. It's just not work. It's just not.
Same with me. And I love that procrastination thing because It's the old saying is, why do today what you can put off till tomorrow?
Well, that's a little different. If I'm a student at the university and the exam is tomorrow, maybe I better better study tonight.
Yeah.
Right?
So give us some parting thoughts for any of those screwballs out there wanting to go out on their own, and also tell them about the freebie you have for them.
Okay, so the freebie first. So go to my speaker site, which is Ken Keis, KenKeis.com/Tom. Now, I don't know where we came up with that private URL.
You are so, that's what a PhD gets you.
I know. I know it's so difficult. I say, that's fine. And so KenKeis.com/Tom, and I am going to give you a free copy of my ebook, of my latest book, The Quest for Purpose, the whole thing. This is not little ebook. This is the full 280-page book that is in print.
Me, didn't you?
I did.
Yes,
I am sending it.
I got it this morning. And I said, darn, I got to get on the darn podcast and talk to the actual guy that I didn't want to talk to you because I wanted to read the book.
There we go.
I sucked it up. And, but no, I was, I get books by the dozens mailed to me, and I was leafing through that one. I said, oh man, that's a good subheading. Let me look at that section. And I don't really take to that stuff all that often, but I can't wait to get rid of you so I can go back to your book.
Well, there we go. Well, thanks, the fake stuff. Yeah, it's called The Quest for Purpose for a reason. And you know what? There is some work involved, meaning if 90% of the people don't like what they do, then the parting comment is there's 2 or 3 things here. First of all, take 100% responsibility for your current condition. If you don't like what you do, if you're not living on purpose, then your purpose is to find your purpose. So that's number 1. Number 2, is there going to be a lot of people around you? Every single person, Tom, around us has an opinion. Now, social media, of course,
right. Everybody
has opinions. Very few people have wisdom.
Fake people have opinions even.
That's right. So when I actually had this sales position. I had a company car. They were covering my lunches, all my healthcare, everything was all covered. And I decided to go and start my own sales training company. My dad said, why would you be so stupid to do that? And so there will be a lot of people around you who don't get this entrepreneurial thing, don't get this business thing. You need to kind of drown it out and make sure that you're not talking to those individuals. I'm always amazed at people who don't have kids, who always have an opinion about how you should be a parent. Excuse me, I'm not listening to you. If you don't own a successful business, then I'm not listening to you. The other side is, tap into other people that have gone before you, mentor you, get their training, get Tom's training about how to, run a business or market or whatever the case is. Go to the people, the individuals, the processes, the courses, invest in yourself, do our assessments. Don't cheap out and say, I'm going to buy this business, but I'm not going to develop myself. Your ability to serve others is equal to or less than your own development. And so you are the number 1 hindrance to your business going forward because of what you haven't learned yet. It's not about you're not good enough. That's not what I'm talking about. It's talking about if you haven't gone to $10 million is because you haven't connected to a person who's done $10 million to teach you how to do it, or $1 million or whatever the number is for you, $100,000, doesn't matter. Is that my encouragement is just go and seek wisdom from those people who have been before you, such as your programs, Tom, to go forward. And then enjoy the journey. I mean, you're never there. It's just be in the moment, be mindful, enjoy it right here. It's never about, okay, when I get there, then I'll be happy. That's the Western disease. Marshall Goldsmith talks about that. Just be in the moment, enjoy it right there, have fun, make sure that your business is going in the right direction. And if you've made a choice that isn't the direction or isn't turning out exactly as you envisioned it, it's okay to change it. I'm sure, Tom, that you've made some choices along the way that you said, oops.
Absolutely. Who hasn't that's been successful?
Right. So we've all done that. I invested in a company that I was ripped off for hundreds of thousands of dollars. I was stupid. It was my mistake. I have to take responsibility for it, and I should have never gone into it. But that's another story and another podcast.
I invested in a pumpkin farm, and they called off Halloween. How bad is that?
Did they? Oh man, you should have known better.
I know.
You should have known
I
better.
should have known.
Right.
And,
Should have been on City Hall.
Really,
Yeah.
most of us have made more oops than successes, but we just kept persevering, and that's
Absolutely.
part of. I'm sure the assessments look at that on, are you persistent? Are you consistent in the way you do things? So all this is really great advice. Tell them the site again, also for the assessments.
Okay, well, you can go to crgleader.com.
CRG. Charlie
Leader,
Romeo Golf. All right.
Right, LEADER.com. And you also can get to the assessments through the speaker site. So kenkeis.com/Tom. And I really want everybody to get that free gift. I really just started doing this, Tom, where I was, you know what? Let's just give this book away. Let's make sure that we have more people who are living on purpose. And then if they want to learn more or get some of the other assessments and find out about their values or their personality or their entrepreneurial sort of style, then they can come and access that from us. And my encouragement is that you would invest in yourself. Don't cheap out. And if you're spending more on movies and dinners during the month, then you know what your priority is.
Beautiful, beautiful advice. And hey, Ken, thanks so much for taking the time out to talk to our screwballs. We call them screwballs. Listen to this show.
Well, hey, I'm one of them. So, hey,
Yeah.
I'm just having a party. I found a kindred spirit. And Tom, thanks very much for doing what you're doing. Serving individuals and having me on the show is such an honor.
Oh, my pleasure, man. So everybody, if you like this show, please subscribe and leave us a review over at iTunes. If you don't know how to do that, we have instructions for you at screwthecommute.com. Don't forget or remember about the screwthecommute.com/Facebook, the private Facebook group where you can interact with me and my entire staff and a lot of other great entrepreneurs. And hey, we're going to see Ken again one of these days, and make sure you check out all his stuff. Get his freebie in the show notes. So, Ken, thanks so much, and we'll catch everybody on the next episode.
Thank you.